aspects of industries, our everyday life, being prosperous and innovative. And so I really spent the last 10 years applying my professional experience in storytelling and communication, coupled with my background in politics, to really give a platform or give a voice to those who I feel are not heard or clearly understood, again, on the impact of what the arts, quote unquote, provide, right? It's not just a hobby. These are really highly skilled tradespeople who spend thousands of hours honing their craft. And these are viable, essential workforce that every industry needs, and it really distills down into creativity. So I spend every day communicating what I just communicated to you, not only to state leaders, both public and private, but local elected officials, stakeholders, and also the sector in itself, in helping provide tools for which they can advocate for self, advocate for the sector, and really help build awareness on how to be the most innovative community, to be the most innovative corporation, to be the most innovative state. You need to be the most creative in all of those areas.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and I was just at an event yesterday where they were talking about the next most important thing is going to be creative problem solving. And I definitely believe that America, for the most part, had most of its growth when we were the innovators. I mean, granted, people ripped us off in a lot of our inventions, but I think the world does look to us for ideas. And if we stop ideating and stop, doing creative thinking and creative problem solving, that's like one of our best assets and something that we need to invest in. And I'm so pleased that you're here to help with that mission. And it's one of the things that my company stands for too, and why it was founded is because I have a fine arts degree. I got into marketing because that's where you had to make money if you were an artist. And I still work with a lot of people that have a side hustle, if you will, of being an actor or something else because that can't sustain them as a career, which I always found really baffling. It's like other people have talents and they can make a career out of it, but why can't people in the arts? And I think a lot of it is because it's not taken as serious as some of the other things, even though it's probably one of the most important things that we have, to offer the world. Um, I loved, like I said before, I loved your journey about how you started as a journalist, and you're studying. You got into that level in college. Did you do a lot of writing when you were a kid, or what did you do for creative inspiration or play when you were a child?
That's really interesting because I know you had mentioned that earlier, and I stopped to think like I don't know what I did. I was an avid tennis player. I loved playing tennis. I remember thinking, I wanted to be a professional tennis player. I thought about being an attorney. I mean, I remember having a real sense of drive at a young age, but I do remember writing. I'm now being jarred about memories of maybe oh gosh, fifth, sixth grade, and creating the school newspaper with a couple of kids, and putting together, what that school newspaper looks like, or not so much drawing, but more of imagination play. I remember doing
Hmm.
that. So there definitely was that aspect of wonder or curiosity, which I think is at the heart of creativity. And it's just been something that's always been within me. I get really excited about learning new things, and asking questions, and really wanting to understand more about how things work, how people think, how people react and feel. And so I just think that's always been a part of my upbringing and journey. I'm the youngest of seven, and
Oh,
so
wow.
yeah. And so my oldest sibling is 9.5 years older than me. But I remember being called the informer. So I was that kid, like, do you remember that Mikey cereal commercial? Like, have
Yeah.
Mikey try it. So I was that kid, but I was like, have Angela go ask mom and dad X. Have heard of this. And so it was through communication, and it took me a while to see that I was being played, but hey, I think that's what builds resilience and tenacity. So that's always been within me.
I'm definitely seeing a path between that and where you are today, because you talked about a lot of things like, asking the questions, being tenacious, being competitive, wanting to get the story and things like that. So, I don't want to fill in those blanks for you, but can you just kind of expand on that journey a little bit? Like you said, you were the informant or the informer as the child. So how did you get from there to here?
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It really was in high school, loving my government classes. I was on the mock trial team, debate team. Um, so it always goes back to, I think, language and words and
Hmm.
communication. And so wanting to then be a reporter, I was given advice in high school as an intern at a local television station where someone said, don't major in broadcasting because that's something that you can learn on the job, but major in something that you can sink your teeth in and that you build a knowledge on that. And I took a poli sci 101 class at Ohio State my freshman year, and I loved it. And so that really became a focus of mine that I thought was my passion. I grew up in a family of engineers, and my mother was a physical therapist, and we didn't have original artwork. We didn't go to museums. We weren't that cultural side was not developed. But as I got older, I was fascinated to see just even paintings at the art festival, things like that that were
Hmm.
just done where you could see someone's own hand in it. And now realize, because you mentioned earlier, people say, I'm not creative. I used to say that all the time. And it wasn't until I had an art gallery, which was to support, give a voice
Right.
to artists, that someone said, no, you are creative. We're all creative in our own way. So I was always curious. Again, I always wondered why or how. And it was more about relationships and interacting than
Hmm.
necessarily like
Hmm.
a technical widget. And so it really became into how can I really enjoyed honing my voice in telling a story, telling someone else's story in a really compelling and exciting and engaging way. And so to be able to now, 25, 30 years after I, started out as a political reporter, to be able to apply those skills to an area that I personally was passionate about, which was supporting artists, creatives. It's really an exciting and fulfilling um, position to be in to give voice to those that aren't really seen or necessarily
Hmm.
understood.
Yeah, and I think you pretty much have again crystallized the exact reason why I want to do this podcast, and it is, you do have a very strong, logical, competitive side, but then on the other hand, you're tapping into all those feelings and emotions and the curiosity. So it's that using every part of your brain that is what's kind of, dragging you further into this career and self-discovery. I have to ask you this next question. Is there anything that you do now that still charges up that right side? Do you do creative things? Do you still do writing? Do you, even if it's, kind of work related, I'm just kind of curious if you're still, kind of embracing that whole thing. You kind of touched on some of it already, but um like with the whole curiosity part and things. So
Yeah, and it's funny that you say this now. I guess part of me too. I dreamt of being an author, and there still is. And saying that out loud, I don't think I've ever said that to anyone other than my husband. So saying that out loud, I just kind of got a little grip in my stomach. But I have had in the back of my mind a little bit about, could I write something? But I do write. I write for work a lot.
hmm.
I am now tapped in my home to help my children to edit some of their work. I really, again, I don't know, it goes back to words. Like words fascinate me. How we explain or describe something is really, I think, powerful. And I think words, um, aren't necessarily thought of in a way that carry as much power as they do. And again, you're bringing up a lot of old past things. This is like a great therapy session for me. I mean,
That's the fun of this.
you know, think about when you're a child growing up and just words that other kids say to you and how,
Mhm.
that can hurt and what residue that leaves on a
Right.
person. And so I really spend time thinking about and listening. I think listening is a skill as well. And so I really start out listening. And I think that's where my curiosity base is I just want to hear and learn other people's stories or what makes them tick. So it goes back to understanding creatives in a more thorough way and what process they go to and what challenges they have. And then taking that and being able to either communicate or write about that, that's an exercise that I do on a daily basis, constantly distilling how can I best communicate in the most concise and clear way um, the impact that an individual creative has or the work that they apply and how that can again propel all industries and how we need to apply that regardless if you
Yes.
are an attorney, a surgeon, a musician, a dancer, a scientist. We need that fundamental basis of that creative thinking process.
Yeah,
and,
and I'm
and
hoping that, oh, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
I'm hoping that, there obviously with the pandemic there were a lot of bad things that happened, but I also think there was a lot of great things that happened. And I'm hoping that one of those is people's appreciation for the arts and writing and things like that, because all of that went away. And I have to tell you that just even trying to entertain yourself on Netflix, some of the programming was horrible because nobody was writing anything good. You couldn't go to a play or the symphony or to the art museum or any of that sort of stuff. And I personally I missed it a lot, and I'm hoping that people kind of realize how much a lot of this weaves into everyday life. Even if you're a sports fan, the music that they play in the stadiums and things like that, there was a person who actually created that and played the instruments or the keyboards or whatever, that creates mood and excitement. And I'm hoping that you know creative people will finally get their day, and it's a little more appreciated. Um, Actually, let me ask you this first. You had mentioned kind of in passing writing a book. Would that be like a fiction book, or would it be something based on what you are doing, like your?
Oh my gosh, don't, I mean, I can't believe I said
If you
that.
if you don't know, you can say you don't know. But I was just curious if it was like something that was just totally, made up or based in reality, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think it would be more based in reality, and it would probably be one of those, if I could tell my younger self something,
Oh, nice.
what would I advise or what would I say? And so I think
I
it's
love it.
more of that type of,
Hmm.
it's, a story of a journey and just more advice or more along those lines. What would I tell my younger self? What would I tell a woman who, has ambitions and wants to be an entrepreneur and um, do something outside the box?
Hmm.
What are some things to look out for, both good and bad, pitfalls and
Right.
not. So it would be
I
along
I love
drawing on
that.
my experience.
I love that because
Yeah.
I think, people have a lot of issues even with like imposter syndrome, which we're hearing about a lot too. It's like, I don't know if I can do that. And it's like, well, why can't you? And if there's somebody else just saying, you know what, if you just kind of look for the signs and follow the path, and here's the path I would have told myself, or things like that. I think that could be really a compelling story. So we'll wait for that.
I have a feeling you won't let me forget that.
I may bring it up, but at a certain point, I don't want to pressure you either because people have thrown that at me too. It's like, when are you going to write the book, Catherine? And I'm like, you know what? I don't know. It's, in my head, and until it starts taking a shape, that's where it's going to stay, But,
Exactly.
I'm sure I have one in me. I think a lot of people have a good story in them or a good book in them
Right.
that could at least, even if it's a small one, that people
Right.
could get some thoughts on paper. Um,
Yep.
uh, what would you ultimately like to have as your legacy there. You know, like you've actually come in and done some pretty awesome things already, which I would like to give you credit for, you know, just finding and working hard for millions of dollars for the arts. So thank you for that. But that's quite a platform to, you know, to start with.
Well, and I appreciate that because arts still has a connotation of a hobby or something extra, a
Hmm.
nice, it's not a necessity. It's just like, oh, it's great.
Or just for the rich or something like that, you know?
Absolutely. I was told during the height of the pandemic when I was fighting for funding is, the arts are for rich, older, affluent people. And when I hear that, it's like, I can't believe there's still that belief. And why is that? And I think that, not that I think, I know that we have, when we've engaged or we have exposed, quote, the arts, what we normally do when we bring stakeholders to show them the sector, we bring them to the
Hmm.
opening of the Nutcracker or the
Oh
Black
my
Tie
gosh, yeah.
Gala or Hamilton or those things. What we don't do is we don't show the individual, right? And so I use this analogy, when Honda wants a tax incentive from the state, they don't take the governor to the Honda dealership and say, look at the 23 Civic, isn't it beautiful? I equate that to
Right.
bringing that opening of the ballet, right? It's the finished beautiful product. What Honda does is they take the governor to the assembly plant floor and say it takes these many Ohioans to build one car. So
Right.
what my drive and legacy would be is that we flip how we talk about and how we show, quote, the arts. It's about creatives, it's about the sewers and the set builders and the lighting
Hmm.
techs, the sound engineers. I mean, we are a highly skilled trades workforce that supports manufacturing. When you talk about STEM, um, and that's all we hear is STEM, that's so transactional that
Hmm.
there's so much technology in the arts and creative sector that we don't apply those same workforce development opportunities. We don't expose underserved or others into, and again, it's all about training. You said earlier about how do you teach? You're not taught to be creative. I really do think that at an early age when play is encouraged, that's that whole process. We don't continue in the
Absolutely.
workforce can allow for that space of mental play. But think about when you have those ideas of a book, or when you're thinking about, if you're an attorney, and I'm just making this up, how do you defend this case? Or I've got this project ahead of me. Most times that innovative or creative thought comes while we're doing a mindless another activity. And our mind is
Yes.
just working in the background, right? And
Yep.
that's the creative process. And artists, it's interesting. I read a quote recently that says, art isn't an object, it's a way of thinking.
Oh, I
And
love
that's
that.
yeah, and that's really where I want to take that thought process. Where so legacy, my what gives gets me up every morning and drives me is I want to live in a world where creatives are valued for the economic output or the economic drive that they provide. I want to live in a world where creatives are viewed as essential. I want to live in a world where creatives are validated as a necessary workforce. And
Hmm.
again, it's creatives. You can be a creative scientist, a creative attorney, a creative surgeon, a creative automotive engineer. You need that basis. Um, Again, I think it's the gentleman that founded Kodak said, innovation is at the intersection of technology and creativity. When you think about the
Yes.
Industrial Revolution, and we were a leader in that in Ohio, and many want us to get back to being a leader of innovation. Well, you needed to have creativity. The Wright brothers needed to think about getting something off the ground, and the light bulb and all of those things that we were known for to be leaders. It all stemmed from curiosity, creativity, um, that led to invention, which
Yeah.
is innovation. And so I think that is what drives, and if I could change that thought process of artists are viewed as creatives that are an essential part of every industry and every community.
Well, I agree 100%. And you actually spotted off some great quotes there that I'm hoping to get on a t-shirt because I think we need to make this more of a mainstream sort of thinking and, make it fashionable too, you know, but yeah, that could be really cool. But I love and absolutely endorse everything that you said. I do think that we need to elevate that our creative minds and just when you like again the people especially that say they're not creative, how life changing that's going to be for them when they really do start tapping into that and thinking about rather than a STEM mindset, which is may have just one answer, but if you open up that right side and think creatively and innovatively, there's millions of answers to problems that you're trying to solve on an everyday basis. I love it. We could probably just end on that because everything you said is just so incredibly powerful and on point to I think the audience and to my beliefs personally. So I am so glad that you agreed to do this because this has elevated me into keeping up the fight for more recognition and appreciation for people that just can think differently. One of the
Yeah.
examples I love to use is when people are not really sure about this whole process. And like, well, just think about the iPhone or the iPad, for example. I mean, you could have all that technology is available in many different forms. Everybody has created, some form of that. But there's just something about getting either of those products that the packaging, the feel, the look, that really is, I mean, that's the right side creating something for your right side of the brain. And logically it works. And logically you could get any phone, you could get any iPad or Kindle or whatever. But there are certain ones that just resonate with people and that they're definitely, like I said, in everybody's pocket. Um, because people just feel better when they have them.
And so one thing I'll end here is I can't tell you how many times I go speak at colleges or go to different events and people will come up to me and introduce themselves like, well, I'm just an artist. How many
Oh,
times,
I
right?
get
I mean,
that
that's
too.
just right. It's like, I'm just an artist. No, you're part in
Yep.
Ohio, you're part of a $55 billion economic engine that employs
Yeah.
330,000. That rivals many industries. And so I say, no, you're part of a really strong, powerful, essential industry. That's that's where I would like to drive that conversation. And if there's one thing that I can get, that is to get artists, creatives to embrace and be bold about, I am an artist and um, you're not just you are
Right.
essential and critical for every aspect of community.
Awesome. Angela, thank you so much. I appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Catherine. It's great always to talk with you.